Thank you for tuning in to another Duncan Aviation Straight Talk webinar. My name is Michael Kuzatz. Today we're going to be talking about the Garmin G1000 NXi and the King Air. Today we have Garmin with us today. I've got Scott Fry with Garmin and Jim Laster with Garmin as well. Scott, you're the G1000 King Air guy, correct?
Yeah, correct. I've been at Garmin about 10 years.
Okay.
And for the last 6 years, I've been the sales and program manager for the G1000 NXi for the King Air. So had an opportunity to work with a lot of installation facilities, a lot of end users, operators who are looking to upgrade their flight deck in their King Air to G1000 NXi. So we are able to do that in the C90 series, started at serial number LJ1063 and higher. We only cover the 90s with the triple fatal electrical system. And then we do this 200 series and the 300 and 350 series.
Okay, sounds good. And you fly. I mean, you're type rated.
Yeah,
in the King Airs too.
Type rated the King Air, ATP CFI. I've been flying it for several years.
Okay, nice. And Jim, you're our sales rep, but you cover a big territory as well.
Yeah, so I cover the Midwest essentially as my core job, but I've been lucky enough to get Duncan as a whole. So I cover all of their satellite shops, which is unique for Duncan, or for us as a whole. Is Duncan's got a lot of satellite shops all the way from Sacramento to Fort Lauderdale up to Minneapolis. So I've got to get to know a lot of people from all over the country from Duncan, and it's been an awesome experience. So yeah, been with Garmin just over 10 years and not quite as decorated a pilot as Scott, but I spent some time with the Bug Smashers out playing with our gear as well.
I was going to say, because you fly G1000. Yeah, I mean, you fly it all. G1000, the TXi, G5s,
Yep.
I mean, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, everything we got, and if it's not bolted down, I'll take it. So yeah.
Sounds good. So leading in, there's a term, I mean, NXi.
Mm-hmm.
So when it started off, there wasn't an NXi, but now it is NXi. What does that mean?
Yeah, correct. So G1000's been out for several years. I think it came out in 2004 back in the Cessna 172 years ago.
Right.
And then throughout the history of the timeline, it's progressed to larger aircraft. So, it was time for a refresh with G1000. So in 2017, we announced NXi in the King Air. And what NXi does is it's a newer version of G1000. It looks more like a G3000, 5000 type look.
Okay.
We went to newer displays, newer processors, triple the memory, dual core processors, things like that. And it allows us to do a lot of growth enhancement features that the current G1000 couldn't support. It's like technology and computers, everything, right? You got new technology, better speed, better resolution on display. So that's where we went from G1000 to NXi.
And there are some extra features, and I think we'll probably talk about those that you got that you couldn't do. And it wasn't that you just didn't have the processing power to do it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Understood. So this webinar is going to be mostly about the operational benefits and the cost savings of G1000, which of course is why everybody wants it. We'll get into the operational benefits. One of the things you hear a lot about is the weight savings. Mm-hmm. You hear numbers of like 200 pounds coming out of an airplane, which I think a lot of people are somewhat shocked that we have 200 pounds to lose in avionics. Is that an accurate number?
Oh, yeah, it's very accurate. I would say on average about 250 pounds. It really depends on customer's airplane, how it's equipped, any additional equipment that may be coming out and things like that. I've seen it lower than 250. I've seen it as high as the upper 300s. So you definitely will get a weight savings. And, like in a King Air 200, that's a big deal. That's more fuel, another passenger, maybe some more bags. So yeah, you will get a weight savings. Absolutely.
And the weight and balance is okay. You don't lose it too far on one side. I think we've got some images of what it looks like. So there's a before shot of the nose of the King Air. Yeah.
So that's a typical, installation from, a legacy type airplane. The airplane might be 20, 25 years old. Looks like an EFIS 85 flight deck, probably.
Okay.
And those are all the LRUs that are up in the nose. They're big, they're heavy, they're bulky. You see it's really tight space in there, right? There's not a lot of extra room in there.
And so all that comes out.
Everything comes out. Absolutely. It's what I call a gut job of the airplane.
Yeah. And so that's it. That's all that's left.
Yeah, that's the nose avionics bay after the mod is done. You got a couple of GIAs up there, which are your WAS engine for your nav and comm, the brains behind the system that really drives the G1000. And then you've got a lot of extra space in there, some connectors and some little things, but most of the RUs are behind the display.
That's what I was just going to ask you. Where did everything go?
Yeah.
So the cockpit really just behind the displays where all the,
Yeah.
I guess the LRUs have gotten, just like all electronics, have gotten a lot smaller.
Exactly. So you can see it cleans it up a lot. It's a lot cleaner. And that's where a lot of the weight savings comes from, in
Okay.
addition to other things.
Makes sense. Also, as a programming note, I forgot to mention for people tuning in, if you have any questions, feel free, there's a chat box there. We've got people standing by and looking at questions. We will get to the questions after the presentation. So at any point you've got any questions, what we're talking about, go ahead and fire those off, and we'll get to everything at the end of the presentation. So sorry about it. Should have mentioned that first. Okay. So weight savings is a big thing, but also on the operational benefits, you're getting some new technology, just like you said with NXi.
Mm-hmm.
Now, small airplanes flying 430s and 530s have had LPV capability for a long time. And I know as the aircraft get bigger and bigger and bigger, I mean, there's a lot of big Part 25 jets that aren't flying LPVs yet. King Airs are kind of in the middle. Mm-hmm. So obviously with this G1000, you get LPV capabilities, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's WAS, LPV, ADS-B out compliant. It's RVSM compliant as well.
Wow.
Their data computers RVSM. It's just a matter of you getting your LOA done and things like that. So, but yeah, it enables you to get into a lot of airports that you couldn't get in before. Like if there were VORs, NDBs, high minimums, and things like that.
Right. So here's the FAA stats are interesting. They keep updating this. There's roughly 4,000 LPVs serving 2,000 airports. And the big number is there's almost 1,200 of those airports are non-ILS airports. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what you were saying is now these, the King Air can get in just about any airport.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of King Air operators and owners who have business, that have to go to remote or what I would say rural or uncontrolled airports. Instead of going to a major hub and getting in a car and driving 50, 60 miles or whatever, they're able to get in there now.
Yeah.
So it's more efficient with their time, and they can get their business done, get in and get out.
And go ahead.
Also, I was going to say another thing is that we have access to the other side of the airport now. Too.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
So, for instance, at New Century, we had an ILS into one side, which is our home airport. The other side has an LPV, but we also have a crossing runway that didn't have any instrument approaches. Well, they resurfaced our runway. That wasn't that much fun doing circling approaches, but it's really nice that we had LPVs into those other side where they did that. So if you go to those non-controlled airports, you might only have precision on one side of the runway, and now at least we have lower minimums to the other side. So
and we can get into the whole safety thing on circle to land. I mean,
right.
I know as doing IPCs, every 6 months, doing those circle to lands in actual is, FAA doesn't like them. I know like a lot of, I don't think 121 are even allowed to do a circle to land just because they're dangerous and they're hard to do. So now you've got those. But on that note, you guys with the NXi, you have visual approach capability now too, don't you?
Right. So that was one of the features that was a big customer request that people wanted in an upgraded NXi flight deck. So if there's a runway in the database, if you've got your ILSs, your LPVs, all your approaches listed for specific runways in airport, you also will have a visual approach selection in the procedure pull down menu. So you can load up the visual approach. It'll default to a 3-degree glide slope. Okay. And it'll give you lateral and vertical navigation.
So it looks like an LPV.
It looks like an LPV. And you can actually couple the autopilot to it. And, give it, if you do vectors to final and, arm the approach, and it'll intercept it and capture glide slope and come on down just like an LPV approach.
Does that runway that you have the visual approach, does it have to have an LPV on it currently?
No.
So it can have 0 approaches on that runway, or an airport with no approaches. And so even like little Gardner that's got a little paved runway, no approaches, you'll get visuals into those?
Yes.
We do what we call is a smart look at it. We'll take a look at the obstacles and terrain database.
Okay.
And if there's a published approach at like a 3 or 3.1 degrees, we'll just give you that same glide path. If there's nothing, we do a quick survey. Is there any obstacles or terrain? No, then we'll give you the standard 3 degrees. There's a handful of airports in the country that don't have service. They just will say no VFR approach. Right. But that also means you probably have some very large things in between you and the airport, which you have more other considerations to begin with.
But it's one of those things like we go into, I'd go into Dallas and they're like, you've got a few airports that are right next to each other. And they're like, hey, you have the airport in sight? I'm like, I've got one of them in sight. I don't know which one I have. Yeah. So loading that visual approach kind of eliminates you looking like an idiot and going to the wrong.
And you could do a vectors to final. You can also do what they call straight in, where it gives you a predetermined altitude that's derived from the database. It's affixed from the end of the runway.
Okay.
So you could actually VNAV down to that altitude and then couple it and then come on down. So it works great.
Yeah, that is amazing. And that's, we've got that. The other technology, obviously your ADS-B out. We have to have, but the aircraft is also ADS-B in, correct?
Yeah, so the standard transponder configuration for non-TCAS2 airplanes, which is the majority of the King Airs out there. Some have TCAS2, but the majority don't. We use a 335 transponder and a 345. Both
Okay.
are ADS-B out compliant. The 345 will give you the in, so you can get the FISB weather and traffic from the ground stations and ADS-B traffic air to air.
And I think a lot of people, and we've heard this before in the more capable airplanes, they say, I've got radar, I've got a traffic system, I don't need this ADS-B in. But Garmin, obviously, they've got some new, we've talked about Target Trend before, and I don't think if you've not flown with Target Trend, you don't know what you're missing. If you have Target Trend,
We'll never give it up.
Yeah, because and I think we've got an image of how Target Trend works on that.
So here you'll see, this is what we're all used to seeing as far as traffic targets, right? So this guy is roughly 6 miles out. He's 1,000 feet below us, and it looks like he's going to be well in front of us. And if you have to do the mental math in your head as a pilot, okay, how fast am I going? Then you have to take a wild stab at what that aircraft actually is. Is that a 172 or is that a Lear or what is that? And then you're having to do all of that in your head. With ADS-B, we're getting all of that data in the background. So we have a proprietary algorithm that we take your known position and speed and altitude compared to what he's doing. So then we can provide you what we call a relative motion. So that's this magic green line. So all of a sudden, this looks like a way bigger deal, right?
Right.
This guy's going to come right across our face. So if he starts a climb, we're going to find out if he's wearing Ray-Bans or Oakleys. So the reality here is when you get into those high traffic areas, I again fly in the Midwest. There's a VFR corridor in Chicago that everybody uses. There's a lot of targets out there. I don't care about all the white lines. I care about the green lines pointed at me.
Right.
So it really takes your situational awareness through the roof. That's an ADS-B adder. So a lot of questions I usually get is, well, I already have active traffic. Why do I care? Great. So we take your ADS-B and your active traffic and we blend them together.
Okay.
So you're getting one traffic target and you're going to get their N number, their speed. You're going to get that magic green line. All that's in there. You're going to get one target that's really got all of the information on it.
You can actually, on the King Air, or any of the other Target Trend applications, you can highlight the cursor, take the back knob, and you can scroll through those targets, and it'll give you your course, your track, your ground speed. You can put flight ID. It tells you, it's United Airlines flight so-and-so or whatever.
Right.
So there's a lot of information there about the aircraft that's relative to you and your position.
But Jim, you mentioned even like or both of you, especially like in a King Air, if you're on an approach and you got a 172 in front of you, that green line will actually be coming out behind it, meaning you're going to hit him from behind.
So if you're in a King Air and you're shooting an approach and you're on a longer final and you're doing 140 knots coming down the pipe, that's awesome. And if a 172 is turning base to final in front of you and he's doing 75 knots, I don't care that he's going forward. I care that I'm overtaking him. So that magic green line will actually be coming out of his back end. And it's a dynamic line, meaning if you grab the throttles and you pull the throttle back, that line will actually get shorter.
Okay.
And you can get it back to where if you can keep the airplane in the air, get it back all the way to where the green line starts going forward again.
Right.
That means you're no longer overtaking him. So, and again, if you move the airplane left or right, the signals move. So,
And on that image, you've got it's not highlighted, but the CR, that's closure rate, correct? So then you can literally see how fast
you're overtaking.
Yeah, you're coming on to them. Okay, so, and also NOTAMs. That was kind of the one thing is before you never got NOTAMs, and like all great pilots, we always check NOTAMs before we fly.
100% of the time.
Right. But in case we did not check NOTAMs,
right,
you can actually get that in the air. It comes up the ADS-B feed, correct?
Yeah, that comes in through the ADS-B active feed. So the 345 in this case will be feeding it to the display. For instance, the time that we've used it in the past is we've had an actual flight plan filed and we decided we were going to have to go to the alternate.
Right.
Which is really great because I didn't check the NOTAMs per se at the alternate.
Right.
So we were safe. We went over, checked it, had everything listed right there. And that's an active feed,
right.
And then we have a better idea of what's going on. In that case of our alternate that day, happened to have the runway markings were not there. That's something really important to know before you pop out of the clouds looking for a runway. So it is awesome to have the active NOTAMs on board.
Yeah, that makes sense. This is obviously, we hear this about all the G1000s, guys coming from six packs, older airplanes into a G1000. There's so much information. You've got a big MFD, a PFD, you've got data coming. I know some people feel a little overwhelmed, and because we're talking about traffic, weather, ADS-B, all this data coming in. Is it too hard to manage? Are we overwhelming the pilots with all this data?
I don't think so. We're providing you information so you as a pilot can make better decisions, right? It's up to you whether you want to display all that stuff or pick and choose what you want to see. However, I will say from flying this system for years, particularly, in a King Air, a high performance airplane, particularly 350, I mean, you will reduce your workload.
We've got an image, I think, of the PFD. I mean, because again, we had a 6-pack and you go to that. That's a world of difference. So we've got synthetic vision going here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the HSI, I mean, that doesn't look like an HSI like we've ever seen before. What's going on there?
Yeah, so this is one of the new features of the NXi. It's pilot selectable. You can have your traditional HSI, or you can have this HSI map. It seems like that the older pilots, they like the traditional HSI because that's what they're used to flying for, all these years. The younger pilots, the video type game pilots, they seem to like this new presentation. So what you're doing is you can actually put what's in your primary field of what's on the MFD in your primary field of vision on the HSI map. So in this example, we're showing terrain. Okay, 3-color terrain shading. You can put Sirius XM weather on there. You can put traffic.
So you've got traffic. So you've got traffic, and the terrain is off. I mean, unfortunately, terrain systems have come up because of the Kobe Bryant issue,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen on the news they talk about the yellow and the red, but we've got green here, so we've got a little extra.
So that's one of the new features of the NXi terrain shading. Traditionally we had 2-color shading. We had red and yellow.
Okay.
So now we have green, yellow, and red. So the green is 2,000 feet. The yellow is 1,000 feet. The red is 100 feet. So It's much better contouring, much better shading than what we had before. And, you get standard terrain with TOS B. You can add TOS A as an option, but the majority of folks just go with TOS B.
So if I'm overwhelmed, synthetic vision obviously is amazing because you see that terrain in the HSI map. That obviously is a top-down view, but when you see it on synthetic vision, kind of means a whole thing. It's a whole different.
It's kind of corny, but we like to say at Garmin with synthetic vision, every day is a VFR day, right? Because you're gonna see outside in front of you what you're going to see on a clear day as far as obstacles training.
And on that terrain that we're looking at, will that change colors as well as you get close to it?
Oh, it will. It will change colors.
So if it turns red, then that's that's where you're going.
Yeah.
Understood.
The cool thing here as well is you'll see the little green pipper in there. So this is kind of an extreme case that we're up in the mountains. The reality is of our flight from Kansas City to Lincoln, there's none of this.
Right.
But I've used it every flight because the runway environment is actually depicted in synthetic vision as well.
Okay.
So in the case of here at Lincoln, they have parallel runways. So there's a big opportunity to land on the wrong runway, as where we'll show you on synthetic vision the end of the runway, and the green pipper will actually be on that end number. So if you're supposed to be landing on 35 right and it says 35L, you're on the wrong runway.
And that's we kind of forgot, but there was something you talked about. You talked about surface watch.
Yeah, one of the new features of NXi is a feature called Surface Watch. It's optional.
Okay.
I really like it. It's a great feature. It's more safety enhancing feature when you're in the terminal area of an airport, particularly a high density airport. So with NXi, when you load your flight plan, you can put what runway you're departing off of.
Okay.
So when you do that, it will outline that runway in blue, and it'll show the chevrons in the direction of the flight that you're supposed to be.
So on your MFD, you're taxing,
yeah,
and it'll have the runway that you're supposed to go to.
So in other words, let's say that it's foggy, low visibility, you get lost on the runway, or the taxiway, you get lined up on the wrong runway. Based on what you entered the runway you're supposed to depart off of, you will get an oral annunciation and an alert that will say check runway. Okay. Same if you're coming into land. Let's say you've got 3 parallel runways. I'll give you Memphis, for example. Right. They got 1-8 left, 1-8 center, and 1-8 right. Let's say you've loaded 1-8 center in, but you're lined up on 1-8 left. You'll get an annunciation that'll say check runway.
Really?
And then as you're a certain distance out on the PFD, you will have a textual presentation that says approaching runway such and such.
Oh. Okay,
you're 3 miles out, 2 miles out. And when you land, it'll count down the runway remaining. It's a great feature.
Okay.
Yeah. Han Solo really wish he had this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So back to some of the other features you can do. So King Air, obviously is it a new radar? You get a new radar?
Yeah, you get a brand new radar. Yeah,
okay.
New radar, new autopilot.
And so with the radar, we're used to having, the old airplanes, you had a corny looking little TV display but on the MFD, I think on the older King Air, it was just a radar page,
Yeah,
correct?
so
So now it's different.
Yeah, so on the regular G1000, if you want to pull up your radar, you had to go to a dedicated radar page,
Right.
and then you lost the moving map portion of your MFD. So if you wanted your map, you had to put the thumbnail in the lower left corner of the PFD.
Which not much.
So this was one of the biggest customer requests we've had for several years, was being able to display or work the radar overlay on the moving map so that you don't lose your map. Right?
So that's our image there.
That's your image there.
So as you scale the moving map, zoom in and out, it obviously automatically does to the radar image.
Yeah,
as
you
well.
can control the tilt and the bearing and things from the GCU and the pedestal. And then also you'll notice there on the left, you get your lightning as well. So, I mean, you can't put weather radar and Sirius XM on the same map, obviously, but you do get the lightning strikes there as well.
And it's interesting. I was talking to one of the Duncan pilots who flies with Garmin systems, and none of us had NXi before. Now all their airplanes, they've got G1000, 3000, and 5000. And he said every so often when they get an airplane without the XM weather, they said
big deal.
It is, because they said they're looking forward. When they're getting ready to land, radar doesn't cover it. The normal onboard radar. And he said, when you don't have that, it's hard, just because you're so used to know what's going on. Yeah. So it's good to have all that there. Now can you split this MFD image, correct?
Yeah, you can split it. That's one of the new features of NXi. So if you look at the soft keys on the bottom of that screenshot there, you'll see on the right, it says charts. So if you have your moving map, you just hit the chart soft key and it'll split it. So you can there's two configurations that the pilot can have. You can have your charts on the left and your moving map on the right, or you can have the charts on the left and your flight plan page on the right, which will show you the waypoints in your flight plan.
Okay. And so with it on the right like that, can I still have XM weather and everything on that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, so you can control the pane. If you notice there's a blue border around that, you would just take the joystick and the pedestal and move it over to the right, and the pane color will change from left to right, and then you can control the range of your map, right? And then you move it back to the left, and you can control the size of that chart.
Okay, that's pretty nice. And again, if I don't want that, I don't have to.
It's a good presentation. A lot of pilots, their final approach, they want to see the final approach course on the right, coming into land, and then have their chart on the left and see their self-geo-reference in the position where they are on that approach.
Okay.
And a lot of the times, the pilots set this up in phases of flight, right? So on approach mode, you might have it like this. En route, you might have a full MFD.
Right. So it just depends on what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
On the phase of flight.
And that's a great thing about this. As me and you may change seats, we can change it to as we want, right?
Okay.
And if you have another pilot come into the airplane and doesn't want any of this, in the Garmin, flight team, we have multiple pilots in the same airplanes. None of us like the settings the same, so we all have our own profiles.
Right.
So actually, the G1000 carries profiles.
Yeah.
So there can be a Mike, a Scott, and a Jim profile. You set it, everything gets set to the way that Jim likes it, or Scott or Mike likes it, and it all sets all this.
So you can put 25 pilot profiles in there. So when you power up the airplane, splash screen comes up. It will say default profile, or have the names of all the profiles that put in there, and you just scroll down which one, if you're flying that day, hit enter, and then all your settings are in there. You don't have to go through every page and set it like you want it.
It's like the memory in your chair when your wife is driving. Yeah, same thing.
Makes sense. So we're talking a lot about displays and the operational benefits of the displays, LPV, ADS-BN. I think what the airplane is flown on autopilot. So is this just a display upgrade, or is there more? Or how much of the avionics is getting changed out?
No, it's a what I call a gut job of the airplane, right? You're taking a 25, 30-year-old airframe, or however old your airplane is, and you're getting a zero avionics flight, zero time avionics flight deck.
So that's what's going on here.
So it's not a change the displays and the keypad, and you're keeping the navs, the comms, the autopilot that's in there. You're getting everything is brand new, all new wiring. If you see in this picture there, all the wiring that's being put in, it's a complete overhaul of the avionics. Now there may be some things that you may want to keep that are in there, like you may have an existing rad out or a DME or an ADF or things like that. But new autopilot, new radar, all new displays, all new LRUs behind the seat, all new ADAHRs, air data computer, magnetometers, everything is new.
Okay. And
that's a good point too. The guys that are chasing, a lot of the guys that update to G1000 are not just because they want a new system. They have been chasing for years intermittent issues and these things. When you do this, you're removing a lot of that old wiring and a lot of those old connections or chafing that you just can't find. You've spent years chasing
Right.
down. This literally is the reset button.
Everything's Garmin. You're not trying to interface with all these different third-party manufacturers to make it a complete solution.
And the interesting thing is, it's not like, I mean, this is the same system then. I mean, the Autopilot, I mean, the GFC 700 Autopilot in here is the same as in the Citation 10, all that. I mean, it's all the same type of
DNA is the
equipment.
same. Yeah.
Right, the DNA is the same. I mean, what Garmin's really good with their autopilots is the gains. Okay?
Right.
We know how to make gain changes that are specific for that particular airframe.
Okay.
And this autopilot, to me, after flying it for many years, it's really the rock star of the whole system. I mean, I can be out doing a demo with a customer. I can be 220 knots, 90 degrees of final approach fix, arm the approach on an iOS or an LPV, and it'll roll out right on it. Won't undershoot it, won't overshoot it, capture the glide slope, and it'll come on down. We use a high torque brushless servo, so they're low maintenance, very reliable, robust, and I mean, it's a great autopilot.
And that's obviously all that's great, but you've got the VNAV capabilities too. So if they give you some ridiculous cross in the middle of nowhere or over Bramer at 10,000 feet, I mean, do you have to manually do that, or can the autopilot do that, or how do you load all that
Well,
in?
I mean, you set it up. I mean, it's relatively simple, a couple of button pushes, but in this class of airplane, you're going to get crossing restrictions or a VNAV all the time.
Okay.
You mentioned Bramer before. So if I'm coming back from North Kansas City, well, in this example here, this is not the actual King Air screenshot. Ignore the EIS there on the left, but the flight plan page and the VNAV profile is what you're going to see. So, you just set up a long track offset, push the soft key down the MFD, set the mileage in you want. So in this, I think it says 10 miles before the fix. So if I'm coming in at Bramer, say I want 10 miles before Bramer, I put minus 10, 10,000, then it'll auto-populate the VNAV profile. It'll tell me.
And that's on the bottom right, correct?
Yeah, bottom right. It'll tell you what your vertical speed target is. It'll default to a 3-degree glide path angle. You can actually hit a soft key there. It says VNAV profile. If you want to change that, if you want to change your vertical speed target or you want to change your flight path angle, you can do that, and it'll correct that. So if you want to cross Bramer at 10,000 or 10 miles from Bramer at 10,000, I mean, it's spot on. It adjusts for the wind, the speed, and everything. I mean,
so yeah, you've got a monster headwind. Well, and even if it changes as I'm descending, I go from a monster headwind to a tailwind.
It'll adjust for that.
Wow.
Yeah, it'll adjust for it. You don't have to do anything. You just, make sure that your altitude's dialed down, that you're going down to. You got VNAV arm on the autopilot. Sit back, listen to some XM music, and let it do its thing. Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about the operational benefits of it, but again, cost savings. And you've mentioned some customers in Canada that have had some major cost savings with this. So a few of them. One of them's database costs. Mm-hmm. So we've got some different options on databases, correct?
Yeah. So we do have multiple options, and what that really is depends on what your preference is. We know pilots are very on the chart side of things are very familiar with Jeppesen. And we have guys that have flown, ex-military or gov that are really comfortable with NOS. You have the option of either. If you go with a Jeppesen, you're going to have the privilege to pay a little bit more for their services. As we're Garmin, we offer what we call a Garmin One Pack, which is America's databases at a lower cost.
Okay.
So we're probably a percentage of what you're used to paying in your previous system. Not to mention, you're getting multiple databases more than what you've had in the past. We have an airport directory that's on board, obstacles, terrain, navigational data, charts, VFR sectionals, IFR charts, all of that's included in our database.
Okay.
And we've bundled those all together into one thing called Garmin One Packs.
All right. So you've got like the nav data. You can get that from Jep.
Yep.
Or you can get it from Garmin.
Yep.
Does Garmin, I mean, it's all just the same data. So, I mean,
it's all source data the same. So there's a form called an A260 that the government puts out. And then what the core difference is private airports. Oh, okay. So Jepsen's got their data the same as we do, but then we go and source out more private data. So I think we have a handful more, if not thousands more. Right. Private airfields are actually more in our databases than there is in the Jeps. So, and then obviously we don't clutter the map with all of them. It depends on scales and whatever.
Okay. And you can set, that's right. You can set to what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
That. Okay.
So, and it's awesome. So, but as far as the base data, nav data is pretty much the same. We just have a little bit more private airports and we're a little bit more reasonable.
Okay. Very nice. Warranty costs or a warranty, it does obviously come with warranty. How long is that?
It comes with a 2-year manufacturer's warranty.
Okay. The one thing I keep hearing about is the repair costs. So once you're out of warranty, I mean, you always hear that the Garmin warrant or repair costs are a lot lower. I mean,
So relatively, when you come out of warranty and you're going to go through the Garmin dealer network, they're going to have to send it back in for repair. There's flat rate repair costs. In the past, I'm sure you guys are used to, the owners that are here now are probably used to paying a percentage of what they had. Will probably be a big cut off of that. For instance, if you have a display fail for you in NXi somewhere down the future, I think it's $1,200, $1,400.
About $1,200.
Yeah, so it's considerably less than probably what you were paying for an old CRT display upgrade. So, or not upgrade, but exchange. And that's handled through the dealers. And in case if you get it done at Duncan, you guys have such great satellite coverage that they'll be able to handle it there.
Yeah. Okay. And everything, so it's $1,400 for a display, but as far as you have everything in stock also. So that's the interesting. If I need to do an exchange, for the most part, it's pretty easy to have that done.
Yeah, we do offer repairs, which are your standard repair times, which could be up to 2 weeks. But then we also offer exchanges. Obviously, Kingers can't be done for 2 weeks.
Right.
So we'll have an exchange that we can be able to do. These are all loaded in a place in Louisville where magically UPS has got a massive warehouse that they can ship overnight almost anywhere.
Yeah. Okay. So why G1000? Obviously, Jim, you guys have heard this for years, and it's been a successful program, especially for the King Air. The reliability. You talked about you got people up in Canada.
Yeah, we've got several fleet operators. We've got a very fleet operator up in Canada that does EMS work in very harsh environments, remote areas. Temperatures as low as 30 below,
right?
And they've outfitted a number of their airplanes over the years, probably 15 or more.
Okay.
And they've done a cost analysis over the years from iron gyros and old avionics, and they've already saved over $1 million in avionics costs by going to this system.
Just because they don't have all the repairs.
They don't have all the repairs, right, and all the downtime. And they're on contract, right? So if the airplane's down, they're losing money.
Right.
They're not hauling patients, they're losing money.
Okay. So obviously the reliability, you get a new warranty. We just talked about the lower costs of parts. Databases are cheaper, resale value, and then of course, with all the new technology coming, LPVs, ADS-B, all that, it's all included in theirs.
To that point also, actually, we're future-proofing for you. When we upgraded to NXi, there's a lot of extra that is left in there as far as horsepower.
Oh, good.
So we actually at Garmin, we are actively always updating our software. So since Garmin owns the STC for this, we're actively upgrading the software. So every 12 to 18 months, we're going to come out with a software package. They may come with little updates, but there will be some pilot selectable things that are going to be added that are great. And for instance, one random thing would be reverse frequency lookup, which means you dial in 118.9 when you're in Denver, it's going to know you're talking to Centennial Airport. It'll say Centennial Airport. So you know that you have it dialed in correctly or not. That was just a software upgrade that we did for free. And any software upgrades that come from Garmin will be free from us. Obviously, your shop will have to charge you the time to upload it and sign off all the paperwork. But as far as coming from Garmin, you're not paying any extra software for us.
And there's a lot of space for future growth. We've got roadmap plans, down the road, of STC updates that will come and new features and things like that. So this system provides a lot of opportunity for growth down the road.
And that's really what the NXi was for. The
Correct.
older system just kind of ran out of horsepower. So
right.
That's kind of the Garmin way.
And if customer has a G1000 that was installed before NXi come out, they can upgrade to NXi. It's a matter of changing out the displays, the GCU. There are some applicable service bulletins they'll have to comply with based on their airplane. But it's affordable. The downtime is not long at all if they want to upgrade to NXi.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about it. How many King Airs been modded so far?
We're pushing close to 700.
So how many were pre-NXi roughly?
Probably half of them.
Okay. So those guys that want to do an upgrade, they can get NXi as well. So they're not.
And a lot of them are. They're doing it in conjunction with the maintenance event, phase inspections, engine change out, things like that.
Okay. And that's not a whole rewire. They don't have to gut the airplane.
No.
That one is just a display spot.
It's a display, the GCU, and there are some applicable service bulletins that the shop will have to comply with.
We don't have to comply.
Right.
Now I understand, Michael, you guys are coming out with an amazing program, correct?
We are. We've got quite a network here of facilities. So we've got 31 facilities across the United States. So no matter where you're at, you're going to have a facility close to you that can do this upgrade. But I think what's sometimes even more important is when you're far from home and something breaks, more than likely you're going to have a Duncan facility very close to you to help you. So to make it easy to do the upgrade and maintain these airplanes, I mean, everybody's been chasing databases, repairs, like you said. Duncan is offering a program with the purchase of a platinum package, which we'll talk about here. You will get a 5-year parts and labor warranty on the airplane, all the avionics across the nation, with also 5 years of North American databases. So with those databases, it's not just like nav data. You're going to get nav data, obstacles, terrain, safe taxi, the AOPA database, VFR and IFR charts, and the Garmin flight charts, which is the government charts. What it does not include are the jet charts. So you don't get those, but you will get the government charts. And you'll get all of that for 5 years. So it's pretty maintenance free. I mean, it's a pretty easy system for you for the next
0 cost for 5 years.
Yeah, so it makes it pretty easy for you.
And this is incredible because this is not a Garmin program. This is a Duncan.
Correct. This is Duncan. Yeah, you guys, and that's what we highlighted. You guys have your 2 years. Databases don't come, once you get your new system, customers have to pay for those databases. We take care of that for full 5 years. So that's the nice thing. You get a whole new, like you said, Scott, a whole new package. I mean, you breathe new life into this airplane, and then we make it super easy for you for the next 5 years as far as the cost. So yeah, and like you were saying, Jim, people are sitting there chasing autopilot squawks and all that kind of stuff. For the guy that changes up to the NXi, all that goes away for 5 years. You're just kind of enjoying everything. Questions? I know it looks like we might have some questions coming in over there.
We've had a great turnout for here. So everyone, I appreciate the time that you guys spent with us today. And it's been a kind of a record turnout for us. So I appreciate that. But we did have a couple questions pop in. One of them is we talked about kind of a rate of return, but I don't think we went into that. A guy, Ben from Minneapolis, actually asked, what is the expected ROI on these?
You're kind of the pro.
Well, yeah, I mean, are you going to get your money back out of your investment? Absolutely. I mean, if you look at Blue Book values is going to increase. If you want to resell your airplane, it will sell before any other aircraft. I mean, if you look at all the aircrafts on control, I can't guarantee that, but if you look at all the aircrafts for sale on controller that have G1000, they don't last long. They're gone pretty quick. And a lot of owners out there looking for King Air aircraft are looking for aircraft specifically with G1000. So, yes, you will get your money back. Absolutely.
Awesome. Another question I got from a Dan that is down in Texas. We didn't mention downtime.
Okay.
So as far as installation downtime, I know typically we'll quote a rough hours, but as far as Duncan, what are you guys thinking?
It depends what else is being done with the aircraft. So we look at all the options, what other work is doing, because a lot of people do probably add some interior work or some other things that Duncan does because we are full shops. Full service facility. But we could be anywhere from, 6 to 8 weeks, just depending on what they need to do and what other work, but we'll work with the operators. And that's the nice thing with having so many facilities. I mean, we have a lot of manpower. So if you've got some requirements, you need to go really fast. We have extra manpower sometimes we can pull from.
That's awesome. That's awesome. One of the last questions I've got in here is, how long do you guys plan on offering your Duncan Advantage program?
Good. That's a good question. Should have brought that up. Right now it's for 10 aircraft. We're bidding right now. This customer has 5 airplanes. So that takes up half of them already. So we only have 5 left. So it won't probably last very long. We'll reevaluate after that. But right now it's only for 5 more.
Awesome. That's a great deal. So it looks like we have a couple more being typed in, and I guess we can handle those offline here. But other than that, I think we're pretty good.
Okay, got most of them. And again, for all those questions, we will answer all of you guys. Some of them are very specific, and we can answer every question offline here. We'll email you. Another question we do hear a lot on the webinars is, can I see the recording of this? And everyone who's registered for this webinar will get a recording of it. So if you'd like to watch it again and again and again, you can. Or if you had to jump out for whatever reason, couldn't watch the whole thing, you will get the extra.
Cool.
Yeah, and if there's any owner operators out there, pilots that want more information, they can contact me directly.
That's true.
I'm happy to help as the Garmin program manager for this upgrade. So feel free to email me at my email is Scott, SCOTT.fry, FRY, at Garmin.com. I'll be happy to talk with you or meet with you or whatever you need help.
And also I've noticed, like, if you go into Garmin and go G1000, the landing page or the page for G1000 has your name on it.
Yes.
Also, our mugs up there. So my name is Michael Kuzatz there on the right, and you've got my contact information. And John Spellmeyer he covers the west half of the U.S. So if you're on that side of the country, feel free to give him a call or an email.
Actually, we just got one last question that popped in, and it was if there's a simulator available.
Oh,
Yeah, so Flight Safety has 2 simulators. One is configured as a 200, one is configured as a 300 series in Wichita. Also, there is a facility, King Air Academy, out of in Arizona. Most of you probably are familiar with Tom Clemens. He's kind of the godfather of King Airs. Been flying for 40 years probably, and he works at that facility with Kevin Carson. They have a simulator. And then there's also one over in North Carolina that's fairly new, I believe, Flight-Right. I think they're in the Charlotte area. I just heard about that one recently, but there are definitely facilities out there. I mean, I go back to Flight Safety every year for Recurrent and the 350 sim. It's a great sim, and they'll treat you well. So the folks at King Air Academy or whatever facility you choose, I'm sure they'll be
Great
fine.
point is once you get the upgrade, you actually continue the sim in the
Right.
same avionics. I know.
oh, that's true.
I remember him coming back from the CFIS 8485 upgrade, and he was head spin a little bit because you had to jump airframe a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. So again, us at Garmin appreciate the opportunity to be with you guys.
Great.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
Yep. And on behalf of Duncan Aviation, everyone here and everyone at Garmin, thanks for tuning in. We'll have more webinars coming up, so look at our schedule and tune in sometime soon. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.